All right, so today we are going to talk about the positives and negative sides of unionization in the trucking industry. So, there are a lot of different ways that being a part of a union can affect your job as a trucker, a truck driver. So, we're going to look at the positive things first. So, one thing is that it can improve safety standards. Research shows that unionized trucking companies typically, on average, have lower rates of safety violations, crashes, and violations to certain safety precautions and procedures. And so, being a part of the unionization, can just provide like an extra layer of accountability for the trucking companies to have to follow certain standards that are negotiated with the union. And that improves not only the trucking company because they're safer and they're having less incidents, but it is more safe and more effective in protecting the truck drivers as well. And so that's a big benefit of being a part of a union. Another thing is that on average, union members earn higher wages and get better benefits. They have more negotiating power with their employers because of the union. To be able to negotiate higher wages, higher benefits such as healthcare, retirement, paid leave, things like that. And so being a part of the union really helps with that. Another thing is it just kind of creates a community with other people who are in similar life situations, financial circumstances, day-to-day life, who you guys can kind of band together and argue for certain changes and innovations in the industry. You can make a difference because you're joined together with other people, and that can be a powerful thing. But there are also some drawbacks to being a part of a union, so we're also going to talk about those. The first thing is it kind of limits your individual flexibility as far as negotiations go with your employer. So, with wages, things like that, with rates, you're going to have to follow more closely with the arrangements that the union kind of agrees on together and adopts. Which can make a difference if you are employed by a company or if you're like an owner operator as a truck driver. All of these things can be affected differently based on that. But it can, in certain circumstances, limit your flexibility. So, another thing is employers typically are resistant to unionization because it can lead to conflicts between the union and the managers, because typically the union are kind of banding together to fight for something, and typically it's probably not necessarily what the manager is wanting to do. And so this could be a big problem, which could lead to one of the biggest problems: strikes. Strikes are a sometimes effective negotiation tool that are usually an outcome of a union. But if you think about strikes in the trucking industry, that is a huge deal. So, in the trucking industry, they affect the entire supply chain for almost every other industry in America. At some point, every other industry is going to have to rely on the trucking industry to get their products where they need to be to make sure that their supply chain is running smoothly. And so, a strike in the trucking industry is a big deal. If the truck drivers are not driving their trucks, shipments aren't getting done, their supply chain is getting all wacky, and so is the supply chain of so many other businesses and industries, which could cause shortages, all kinds of stuff, delays, and that could just really have an effect on the entire economy if businesses aren't getting things where they're supposed to be at a certain time and all of that. And so that is the potential with unionization that could be a big impact negatively on the trucking industry, and not only the industry, but the employees. If they're on strike, they have the potential for financial loss. It's bad for the company itself. And so these are all things that need to be considered if a trucking company is considering unionization in their company. While it can be a positive force for good, it can also cause lots of conflict. And in the supply chain industry, that is not a good thing.